Trudeau has Canadians stressed, sad, and borderline embarrassed to even admit they're Canadian. I don't know about you guys, but as every day goes by and we watch our country fall apart, I start to get embarrassed to call myself Canadian, and it's getting more and more difficult to see what he is doing to slowly destroy our country. We know he has to go, and he's not willing to call an election because he is an absolute coward. But we do have a piece of good news. The good news is his mass immigration is absolutely wreaking havoc on a lot of our major cities, on the cost of living, and the overall infrastructure on these services. So a lot of good news in today's video. Let's get into it.
This year's celebrations come as a new survey has found a decline in Canadian pride. More than a third of Canadians say they feel less proud to be Canadian than they did 5 years ago. Canadians were also asked if they agree with Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre that, quote, Canada is broken. 70% of them say they strongly or somewhat agree. Agreement is higher among younger Canadians. And joining us to discuss this further is Daryl Bricker, Global CEO of Ipsos Public Affairs. Daryl, thank you for being here. This survey is showing 70% of Canadians think Canada is broken. What is your reaction to this number?
Sad. My basic reaction is sadness. When I went through the numbers that we got on this survey, I was really concerned about our future and how Canadians are feeling about our country, especially younger Canadians, where 78% describe Canada as broken.
Now, discontent seems to be a growing national sentiment. Any indication on where this is stemming from?
Where this is stemming from? Maybe it's from the fact that our leader is an absolute coward who clearly doesn't care about Canada and Canadians at large. The big thing is these young Canadians are being told that Canada is still the same as it was in the 1970s. The fact is, it's not. It's changed. The Canada we have today is not the Canada from the 1970s and the 80s and the 90s, when it was still considered a great place to live.
Well, I think there's two things. One, people are really feeling it difficult to get by these days. They're having a very hard time getting by. And the promise of Canada in terms of our prosperity and security, at least what we thought we were told about the country we're living in, is feeling further and further away for Canadians. And then I think the second thing is really a whole bunch of things that have happened over the space of the last several years in which our political leaders have not really celebrated Canada, not really told us why we should be proud of our Canadian heritage. We get a lot of apologies. We get a lot of other things coming out of our political leaders, but not a lot of pride. And I think both things are coming together to cause a problem.
And again, it's because nobody's willing to say what Canadian heritage is. I see the conversation online all the time. Well, Canadian is anybody who's got their Canadian passport. That's Canadian heritage. No, it's not. In the 1970s, Canada was 97% European, 97%. That's almost 100%. So yes, we do traditionally have a European background. That was what built Canada, obviously primarily English, primarily French. So then another thing is, of course, the job search. So actively right now, as much as I say, guys, I'm a real estate agent, you can work with me. Business is so slow. I'm currently job hunting. If you know anybody else who's job hunting, I'm sure you're having the conversations. I cannot even get a response from entry-level customer service jobs at this point. Our job market is in the absolute gutter. Like, everything continues to get worse. Things are more expensive, all of that stuff. And then boom, you're being sold this, oh, here's what Canada is. No, it's not. That's not what we're experiencing on a day-to-day.
Now, are these numbers directly or indirectly linked to Justin Trudeau's leadership capabilities?
Well, I think that the Trudeau government is in a uniquely difficult position, but it would be going too far to blame them for all of this. Political leaders at all levels in our cities, our municipalities, in our regions and our provinces in our country need to take the issue of Canadian pride, and I don't mean jingoistic pride, but just a sense of belonging together and a real sense that we're doing things well in this country. They need to take nurturing that more seriously. And I think we've been kind of cavalier and capricious about it over the space, particularly the last decade.
Again, how do you get any level of social cohesion when everyone is Canadian? The passport means nothing. We're seeing this struggle right now. Like right now, Canada is up for grabs. Which culture is going to take over? Because the Canadian culture is being erased. We're watching that happen in real time. So to say that, oh, we need to come together as Canadians, what is that? What is a Canadian, guys? If you're going to just bring in every single person, continue to pump in mass immigration, like, what is a Canadian?
Is there any indication with this on what kind of changes Canadians want to see?
Well, no, we didn't really get into that, but I think that we've seen things that work in the past. When Canadians get together and celebrate what it is to be Canadian, and your broadcast today is a great example of this, coming from Parliament Hill and looking at the 100th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Air Force. This is something to celebrate. Not something to look back and say, oh, the Canadian Air Force was involved in wars, and there's some difficult things that happen, some reckonings that we have to go through with the past. Yes, there's that, but there's also the other part, which is the pride of Canada coming together to create that Air Force. That's the part that seems to be missing in a lot of our conversations.
Exactly, because now if you're like, yeah, I'm Canadian, my family, I've got Canadian lineage and all of these things, people are like, oh, well, Canada has a history, colonizers and blah, blah, blah. And the one thing that I find the most funny is the amount of immigrants who come over and then say Canada is, a nation of colonizers. And it's like, then what are you? Like, what does that mean? Like, it's just a logical, pretzel for them to weave through and be like, well, no, you guys are colonizers. It's like, well, you certainly are then, because you guys didn't build the nation here. So speaking of mass immigration, let's get into the issues that are happening in Calgary, one of Canada's major cities. And the reason it's important to talk about Calgary is because it is getting screwed based on what's happening in major centers like Toronto, Vancouver, and other places. So let's get into it.
A real estate hotspot, even as other areas like Toronto have pulled back. For more on what's driving the growth, let's bring in Ruth Alexander, a Calgary realtor and founder of the Rare Group. Ruth, thank you so much for joining us. Give us a sense of how and why Calgary seems to be decoupling from the national experience.
Good morning, a pleasure to be here. Alberta's truly the main it girl and Calgary especially, the it girl of Canada right now for many reasons. Our affordability is definitely the number one reason people are capitalizing from other big cities like Toronto and Vancouver. And if you have an entrepreneurial spirit whatsoever, you're definitely coming to Calgary to benefit from our lower pricing, and affordability overall is definite.
Okay, saying affordability is definitely a misrepresentation, because it's affordable compared to 1.8 million in Toronto, but it's still, like, I was looking at houses in Calgary recently, 700,000, 800,000, 900,000 are not like surprising prices in Calgary anymore. So for them to be like, it's our affordable prices, it's like wacky.
Definitely a cash in for people migrating from other provinces to our city.
Oh, of course, I've got to ask about the water situation where supply is severely constrained. What, and I think it's going to be a while until that gets back to normal. And I know that officials are working on that. What, if any, conversations are you having as a realtor about that, about infrastructure preparedness?
Yeah, I think the main thing to remember, Calgary is incredibly resilient, and I think obviously our infrastructure, we've worked for many years on developing our highways and our throughways, and it has definitely made Calgary so desirable now that you can drive anywhere in the city very quickly, and we've seen a surge in acreage properties as a result, which, by the way, is unlimited water. However, our city's water main break has been resolved very quickly. Latest news is it is back up and running. We are anticipating that it is once again back to normal by Stampede, of course, our major event here in Calgary. But one thing to remember is our city reacted very quickly, and things are about to get back to normal. And I think it's brought light. The silver lining of any type of disaster like this is that it brings light to the fact that we have a lot of migration to our city. Our city is growing quickly, and I think this has brought light to the fact that our infrastructure needs to be, a main focus. And luckily, things seem to be moving a lot quicker than anticipated. And
Yeah, that's the whole point, that when we talk about mass immigration, it's not just because we hate immigrants. That's obviously not the case. The case is we don't have the infrastructure to absorb this. And in Calgary's specific case, one of their major growth drivers isn't specifically mass immigration. What it is it's interprovincial migration. So like I said, people are coming from other provinces trying to build their life in Calgary and in Alberta. But why are they doing that? Because all of the mass immigration is being basically building up in Vancouver, and honestly, most of it is in Ontario. That's pretty much just the biggest outlier for where most of the mass immigration comes. And as a result, more and more people wanting to escape to Alberta, and they do get immigration too. So when you factor all these things together, it's like, oh yeah, they're just skyrocketing growth and they have no way to keep up with the infrastructure. And this is the always thing that's funny. Well, we'll just build. You can't outbuild the pace that these things are growing at, because it's the most unsustainable pace ever.
And things should be back to normal. And it has brought light to these issues of continuing to grow our great city.
I guess, that population growth story has shown up in a major way in cities like Calgary, to your point. The consequence in other areas has been it makes affordability issues even that much more stark. Are you concerned that will start to happen in Calgary?
Well, we definitely have not seen a major slowdown in this city. Calgary's affordability definitely has made our prices surge month over month and year over year. So our prices are rising. So it is definitely a good idea to capitalize on our prices at this particular moment.
This just in, real estate agent says it's a good idea to buy now. You know, I'm a real estate agent. I said it earlier. There's no like good time to capitalize on the pricing. You just have to find out what makes sense for you in your area. But maybe I'm not a good real estate agent. I don't do the sales. That's why I'm hunting for a job right now, because I talk people out of selling and buying all the time. So, maybe listen to this Ruth lady, because you got to move to Calgary, capitalize on their affordable prices. Just a quick $800K for a house.
The concern remains inventory. Our inventories are very low. So we're seeing still a situation where we have multiple offers. If your property is priced right, we're getting a lot of traffic and a lot of offers. So definitely still is the hot spot. And because our economy is now so much more diverse than just relying on one sector alone, oil and gas. We have a surge in technology sectors and across all sectors. So yes, you definitely have to sharpen your pencil as a buyer and as a seller. And the activity remains very, very robust here in Alberta and in Calgary particularly.
Oh, I'm glad that you brought up the energy sector, and I was going to ask about what makes this cycle, I'm sure it helps that oil is holding in at around these levels and that the energy sector is strong right now. But what is different about this time around relative to other oil bull markets?
Right. I just think, again, Calgary being, it's always been a great place to live, but it's been totally reliant on oil and gas for so long. And I think our city has done a great job of attracting different head offices and different sectors from all over North America to move to our city, close to the mountains. It's just such a vibrant, great place to live.
Yeah, we keep printing money and making more government jobs in Calgary on top of these other cities. And it's great. People can work these, taxpayer-funded jobs. And nobody's actually paying any taxes with productive money. We're just going to continue with the government growth.
And I think it's just doing so well across all sectors that, it's great for Calgary home sellers, not so great for buyers, because, again, there's only about a month and a half worth of inventory supply. So again,
that is a giant gap between what's going on in other cities. Like, I think Toronto's up to like 4 months of inventory supply. Obviously I'm in London, Ontario. I think we're at like 3 something for inventory supply, and around the area. It's getting pretty wild out there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you sticking around for the end. Do not forget to like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Just like it. I appreciate it. That helps a ton. And have a great rest of your day.